Hello everyone. Today I'm going to give you different tips and ways to give successful presentations. And the first thing that you should start your presentation with is by introducing yourself. تقديم نفسك. ولما تقدم نفسك بإمكانك أنك تستخدم الكثير من العبارات اللي موجودة. Let's have a look at these useful expressions. You can start like this one. Hello everybody, good morning or good afternoon, it depends on your time. Before we begin, let me introduce myself briefly. I'm and am, you mention the name and the section. Or you can start like this one. Let me briefly introduce myself. My name is, and I'm delighted to be here today to talk to you about, and you give the topic of your presentation. Or you can introduce yourself in this way. First, let me introduce myself. My name is, and I'm in grade or section. Today I'd like to talk to you about, and you give the topic. هذه العبارات ممكن تفيدك في تقديم نفسك أو كمقدمة للبرزنتيشن أو العرض اللي أنت راح تقدمه للطلاب. بعدها مباشرة تنتقل إلى الخطوة الثانية وهي introducing your topic اللي هو تقديم الموضوع. And also there are different ways of introducing your topic. And look at the first one. I would like to talk to you about, and you mention the topic here and why I'm interested in it. Or you can say, what I'm going to talk about today is, or I would like to take this opportunity to talk to you about, or you can use this one, I'm delighted to be here today to tell you about, or you can say, I want to make you a short presentation about. All these expressions are useful to introduce your topic to your audiences. After you finish introducing your topic, move to talk about your goals of your presentation. And you can use these expressions to show goals of your presentation. Look at the first one. The purpose of this presentation is to, and here you mention the goal or the aim of your presentation. And the second one is, my objective today is to. Also, you can show your audiences the structure of your presentation اللي هو بناء هذا البرزنتيشن أو الخطة اللي أنت راح تمشي عليها أو النقاط اللي أنت مرتبينها عشان تذكرها في البرزنتيشن. So you can start your presentation or the structure in this way. For example, first of all, I will explain, and here you mention the first point. I will explain this one or this idea. Then I will continue by providing or giving you like this and that, and then you move from one point to another until you reach the end of your structure, and you can say to finish. I will be telling you about. So when you mention the goals and the structure of your presentation, you help your audiences to have a clear idea about your presentation. انت هنا راح تساعد الحضور في معرفة النقاط الهامة اللي انت راح تتكلم عنها في هذا البرزنتيشن، وبعدها تبدأ في ذكر الأفكار. وراح تبتدي كل فكرة بطريقة، وراح أعطيك أكثر من طريقة الآن بحيث أنك تستطيع أنك تبدأ فيها كل فكرة على حدة. So to start the point or the idea, you can start in this way. Let me start with some general information on. Or you can say, I'd like to give you some background information about. For example, let me begin by explaining why I'm interested in this topic or in this idea. Or you can say, before I start, does anyone know? And here you are asking a rhetorical question. أيضا بإمكانك أنك تقول, I think everybody has heard about, but hardly anyone knows a lot about it. And then you can conclude your point and give you a concluding sentences or expressions to end your point. And you can start in this way. For example, that's all I have to say about. Or you can say, well, that's about it for this part. And this is how to start and end each idea of your presentation. وراح أعطيكم بعض النماذج كيفية إعطاء أمثلة وكيفية الانتقال من نقطة إلى أخرى. Now let's talk about how to give examples to your audiences. And there are different ways and expressions that can help you give perfect examples. Look at this. For example, or you can say a good example of this is, or as an illustration, or you can say to give you an example, or you can say to illustrate this point, and you mention your example. Also in transitions, when you move from one idea to the next, there are different expressions that help you to do this correctly. Look at them. You can say, next, I would like to talk about, let's move on and discuss. Or you can start a new idea by saying, at this point, I would like to turn to, or you can say, I'd now like to move on to the next part. Or you can say, this leads me to my next point, which is, also when you have some images or graphics, لما تكون معك بعض الصور أو بعض الإحصائيات اللي ودك توضحها للحضور وتوضح فيها بعض النقاط. For example, let me use a graphic or a picture to explain this. Choose one of them. Or you can use this one. I think the picture or graph perfectly shows how or shows that. Or you can use this one. I'd like to illustrate this point by showing you. Or you can use this one and choose one of these. If you look at this picture, table, bar chart, or graph, you can see that. Also, one of the things to remember is don't show your audience that you have forgotten some parts or words of your presentation. لا توضح أبدا للحضور أنك أنت نسيت بعض الأشياء وبعض الأجزاء من البرزنتيشن. حاول أنك تقفز من هذيك النقطة وانتقل إلى نقطة أخرى واستخدم هذه العبارات. For example, let's talk about, or you can say, now let's move to discuss, and you mention the next point. So try to skip the things that you have forgotten. Also, one of the things to remember is, if you remember to say something later in your presentation, try to use these expressions. إذا نسيتوا حاجة مثلا في بداية البرزنتيشن بس تذكرتوها بعدين لاحقا في البرزنتيشن، كيف أنا أرجع وأعيد صياغة هذه الأفكار؟ ممكن أستخدم هذه العبارة. For example, let me add one more thing. Or, I would like to add something to a point we discussed earlier. Or you can use this one. Let me return to an earlier point briefly. Then we move to the last part of your presentation, which is about asking questions. And here we have 3Ds. And I mean by 3Ds is to deal with these questions in 3 ways. The first way is to delay your answer, and I will give you an example of this. The second way is deflect the question. And the third way is to dismiss the question. To delay your answer, it means that you don't want to answer that question at that moment. For example, you can answer the question in this way. I'm not in a position to answer that right now, but I will get back to your idea or question later this session or this week. هنا أنت تبعده عن الإجابة أو تبتعد عن الإجابة بطريقة مهذبة بدون ما تقول I don't know. الطريقة الثانية هي deflecting the question. وطبعا deflect the question تعني أنك أنت تمحور هذا السؤال أو تقلب هذا السؤال وتعطيه للسائل نفسه أو للحضور. For example, that's an interesting question. Before I answer, I would like to know what's your take on this. تسألهم كيف وش رأيكم في هذا السؤال أو تقدر ترد بهذه الطريقة. For example, great, you have raised an important point there. What does everyone else think about this? Okay, هنا أنت you are deflecting the question، يعني أنك أنت تمحور هذا السؤال أو تقلب هذا السؤال تعطيه للسائل نفسه أو للحضور عشان يجاوبوا على هذا السؤال أو يعطوا وجهة نظرهم حول هذا السؤال. أما الطريقة الثالثة اللي هي dismiss the question، وتعني أنك أنت يعني خلاص كنسل السؤال أو لا تجاوب على السؤال أبدا. تقدر ترد بهذه الطريقة بطريقة محترمة. For example, thanks for your question, but I don't think that's relevant to today's presentation or topic or session or discussion. Choose one of them. لذلك هنا أنت تقول له أن هذا ما له علاقة أحيانا بعض الطلاب يسألوك أسئلة ما لها علاقة بالموضوع. هنا أنت تقدر ترد بهذا الرد المحترم. Great. Now move to the last part of this video. In this video, I have for you some speaking practice of giving some presentation. And I have prepared this for you, so you can pause the video now and go through this short presentation briefly. Now, I will give you some important tips. And the first tip is prepare your presentation carefully. The better you know your material, the better your presentation will be. تحضير مهم جدا في إعطاء البرزنتيشن. The second tip is practice your presentation as much as possible. This will help you gain confidence. Practice to yourself in front of a mirror, for example, or give your presentation to friends. Tip number 3.
Give your presentation a clear introduction. Always remember, first impressions are very important. Tip number 4. Speak clearly and at a good pace. Not too fast or not too slow. خليك على طبيعتك. Next, have eye contact with your audience and use gestures and body movement to make your presentation more interesting. اللي هي حرك ايدك، حرك جسمك، ولكن بحكمة. Tip number 6. If you use visual aids, for example PowerPoint, make sure they are clear and easy to read. Try to avoid lots of colors and make your presentation readable. Tip number 7. Smile and look pleasant. If you look as if you are enjoying your presentation, your audience will enjoy it too. At the end, thank your audience. And now I'm thanking you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, ideas, anything to say, please don't hesitate to write it down in the comment. Stay safe and see you soon.